Okay, welcome to the video for 8.23. It turns out this one's valid. I go over this in the lecture, the audio file, all that. So I'm just showing you how to do this by hand, which is a little bit different than when you do it by computer. And this is our first proof showing you how to do it by hand. There will be future ones, so it's good practice here. So what you do first is, if you got the original argument, it would just be premise and conclusion. I've extended the proof line all the way down to give me space. You put the conclusion at the bottom, and then unlike in Fitch where it builds the spaces for you, when you do it by hand, you have to create that space. So make sure you give yourself enough space, okay? And now get out your rule sheet and follow along. The first thing you do is you start again at the bottom, and then you go through that cycle, that process. So with the sheet, the rule sheet, the first thing you try is, can you use or elim? You never look then at the line that you're at. Even though you start at the bottom, when you try or elim, the first strategy, you just cover up the conclusion, and you only look above, basically what you have access to. So remember, the rule is above and to the left, right? To the left like that. So all I have is this, the premise. That's not an or as the main connective, so that's out. So that means or elim as a strategy is out. So now I'm on to the second strategy, which is the backwards method. I now look at the line that I'm at. Now and only with the backwards method do you ever look at the line that you're at. So I look here, I ask what's the main connective. The main connective is the arrow. I put that down, and then step 2 says, what do you guess? You guess intro. So then I put intro there, and I'll use just shorthand, arrow I for arrow intro. You then flip the page, you look it up in the library, and what does that require? There's 3 things in bold there. So the first thing is you need a subproof. So you extend it from here all the way up to the top. No space above and below. It covers everything in between, yeah? And then the second thing you need is the left side of the arrow below. So it's this thing that you're building. So it's this left side that goes at the top here. And then the third thing you need is the right side of the arrow below. So this right here is the right side of the arrow below. B or C goes at the bottom. And the logic of this is just saying the subproof literally says, suppose A were true, dot, dot, dot. You go through some reasoning and arrive eventually at the conclusion B or C. This summarizes everything into this compact form. So if A were true, then you've shown that B or C is true. So now you got to prove it, okay? Now in Fitch, you would highlight this, and then you get the numbers here, and that would check out. When you do it by hand, you cannot do the numbering until the very end. You'll see that as I go through this. That's what's a little bit different when you do it by hand. So again, the program and the software, even though it's a little bit cumbersome, it actually gives you a number of helpful guides and hints and technical, if you like, shortcuts that you wouldn't have if you do this by hand. You do this by hand, and people just, if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, you don't. And the gap between those who get it and those who don't, it just gets great. There is one nice thing with all the software, in spite of all the difficulty. It actually helps people climb up that steeper slope of logic a bit better. But it's still hard. Proofs are hard. So anyway, I get the check in your mind there. Then and only then do you move up. Anytime you move up, you reset the process, right? You go back to the first page, and you reset that whole process. So the first thing you try is, can you use or elim? So you cover this up. You don't look at the line you're at, you only look above. Do I have an or in either of these? No, so or elim is out. So then you're on to the backwards method. Now you look at where you're pointing. Here's the pointer, you're the pointer. Here's where you are, and step 1 says identify the main connective, and the main connective is or, so I put that down. And then you guess intro. You then look it up in the sheet. What does or intro say? It says when you look it up, you need one of the sides of the or above. My sides here are B and C. I got to guess one of these sides above. I could guess B, I could guess C, I don't know. At this point though, you should try to look above and try to get some anticipatory, think of it like a scouting kind of thing. You're looking ahead, sort of scanning the horizon and trying to get a feel for what direction to take next. You don't just guess at random, but you try to make an educated guess. So if you look above, I don't have C anywhere there, but I do have a B. So the better guess than C would be B. So I etch it in right above there. If I were to highlight this, I would get the check there. So in your mind, you get the check. Then you move up to here, to B, and then you reset the process. So you go, can I use or elim? You're back to the first page of the rule sheet. Again, you don't have or above as the main connective. So then you're on to backwards method. Step 1 says, look at the line you're at right here. What's the main connective? There isn't one. When there's no main connective, if you look at the backwards method, it says you skip to the last step. The last step, you says you work top down, and you're using the information above, whatever it is. In this case, it's just 1, and you can number this now 2 because nothing else is going to go in between. So you got to use these two pieces of information to fill in the space in between, however many steps it takes to get to here. Top down is the hardest step because it's basically saying you got to use the information you're given, and you don't know how many steps are in between, and there's no general recipe for this. It's basically like improvisation. Find a way to get here, however many steps it takes. Okay, so it's usually some kind of elim rule, but you don't know what. So I just put E there and the question mark, as it were, in my mind. I don't know what this is. When you work top down, think meaning is all important. Meaning is actually what we're after for the whole course, but we haven't really gotten to that yet because we're still building up our skill set bit by bit. So meaning, all I have is 1 and 2. What does 1 say? What's its meaning? It says, if A is true, then B would have to follow. Well, in order to get B, what do I need? Again, if I were the 50th caller, then I would win a trip to Vegas. What do I need to be the to get that trip to Vegas? I also got to be the 50th caller. So I need two things. I need first the offer, the promise, and then I need to meet that condition in order to get the thing that follows, the prize, as it were. And this fits that pattern. So if A is true, then B follows. I have A, therefore B follows. What rule is that? Well, the only connectives I got up here is arrow. So you might try and guessing arrow elim, but you don't guess at random. You just sort of guess it and then you look it up. Make sure you look it up in the sheet to verify, to check your work. So what does arrow elim say when you flip to it? It says basically you need the one-way ticket or the arrow, you need the starting point or the left side of the conditional, and then it entitles you to get to what it points to. In this case, B. Yeah, there it is. So that fits that pattern. That means the proof is done. Now and only now can you number it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now you have to look up the rules to justify the numbers. So when you look up the rules, look up the rule for conditional elim. It says you highlight the conditional and the left side. So it's this and 2. 1, 2, 2, and 1. It doesn't matter what order. Just those two pieces of information. Likewise, B or C. When you look up OR intro, what does it say? It says you need one of the sides of the OR above highlighted. In this case, I have one of the sides right there, B. So it's just 3. And then lastly, when you look up conditional intro, it says you need to highlight the whole subproof that justifies how this rule works. And that whole subproof starts here 4, goes all the way up to 2. So it's 2-4. Don't put 2, 3, 4, just put the dash to give you the whole subproof, no matter how long it is. And there it is. When you do this at home, you enter it into the computer, you should get the check, but remember, practice all these by hand and then use the computer as sort of backup verification. It's there to get you ready for the midterm. All right, folks, keep at it.